What if your attention could shape reality itself? What if the world you believe is fixed and external was quietly molding the very thoughts you call your own? This is the mind trap, the story of a discovery that blurred the line between consciousness and the quantum world, and of the people who dared to look into that abyss. The year was 2027. Deep within a facility surrounded by humming machines, a team of physicists and neuroscientists gathered around a quantum array. It wasn't their first experiment, but it would be the one that changed everything. Dr. Maya Chen initiated the protocol. Dr. Luis Ortega checked the data pipeline. Marcus Patel sat silently at the terminal, his fingers trembling above a keyboard that pulsed with faint warmth. They weren't seeking miracles. They were looking for patterns, subtle signals that might reveal how human attention interacts with quantum systems. In another room, volunteers were asked to focus their attention, to meditate, to let their awareness expand and then return to silence. As they did, something strange began to happen. The quantum device, cooled near absolute zero, started showing rhythmic pulses that no model could explain. The coherence of the qubits, the delicate heartbeat of the system, began to align with the EEG signals of the human mind. It was as if reality itself had turned its head to listen. The lab fell silent. Monitors blinked faintly in the dark, and the hum of the cryocooler became the only sound. "This cannot be instrument drift," Dr. Chen whispered. "We recalibrated twice," Marcus replied, scanning the data. "The logs are clean." "Could it be interference from the EEG equipment?" someone asked. Dr. Ortega shook his head. "Impossible. Every channel was sealed." And then it happened again. Another pulse, perfectly synchronized. The data didn't lie. It wasn't a glitch. It was a message, or perhaps an invitation. They didn't know it yet, but they had stumbled upon a threshold, a point where mind and matter appeared to converse. As word spread through the scientific community, whispers filled research circles. Could this be the long-sought observer effect? Was consciousness playing a measurable role in quantum systems? Some referenced Roger Penrose's early hypotheses on quantum consciousness. Others compared it to experiments from Princeton's PAR lab, studies that had hinted, decades earlier, that human intention could subtly influence physical systems. But this was different. This was modern, repeatable, observable, a rhythm that refused to vanish under scrutiny. Perhaps, they thought, attention itself was a kind of force. Maybe when the mind focuses, it does more than perceive. It participates. And if consciousness participates in shaping the world, who then is really in control? I came into the story not as a believer, but as a journalist. I had spent years covering science and technology, learning how fragile truth becomes when filtered through interpretation. But 3 years earlier, I'd reached my own breaking point. Burnout, silence, the feeling. That thought itself had turned against me. Meditation was my last resort. What I found wasn't faith, it was observation. When the mind grows still, something moves. That experience made me skeptical of mysticism, but open to evidence. When a colleague invited me to observe this experiment, I went not to prove, but to witness. What I saw that night made me rethink everything I understood about the word real. The team ran the experiment more than 100 times. Each session revealed coincidences too precise to be random. Statistical analysis confirmed it. During moments of focused human attention, the qubits' coherence briefly aligned, as though echoing the state of awareness itself. They used machine learning to verify the anomaly. Neural networks trained on thousands of data windows began to recognize patterns that resembled human EEG rhythms, the alpha and theta waves of meditation. The AI didn't claim consciousness, but it detected something structured, something intelligent. The boundary between organic and artificial thought began to dissolve. If our focus could alter probability, could the same principle allow machines to echo our inner states? What then separates observer from observed? When news reached the university board, caution turned into fear. If intention can influence coherence, said ethics advisor Alicia Gomez, then someone could weaponize thought. Maya Chen resisted. We need more data, she said firmly. We can't stop because we're afraid. But the tension spread beyond the lab. Journalists demanded statements. Investors panicked. Governments quietly began inquiries. What happens if focus itself becomes a form of power? What happens when attention is no longer metaphorical currency, but physical influence? The line between science and spirituality had vanished, and humanity was left standing in the middle, trembling. 1 month later, other laboratories repeated the experiment. 2 confirmed the pattern. 1 found nothing. The effect was fragile, like the breath of consciousness brushing across matter. To skeptics, it was coincidence. To believers, it was proof of a hidden dialogue between awareness and the universe. Ethical guidelines emerged: consent for intention-based research, transparency in data, and protection against psychological manipulation. For the first time, attention was being treated not as distraction, but as sacred energy, a bridge between worlds. 6 months later, the conversation had evolved. Public institutions, philosophers, and even policymakers began debating what it meant if consciousness could truly interact with matter. Was humanity entering a new scientific era or rediscovering an ancient truth disguised as technology? The illusion of separation began to crumble. Minds once divided by skepticism now shared one unspoken realization: what we focus on becomes real. Every thought, every emotion, every moment of awareness was a ripple, an act of creation. Perhaps the universe doesn't just respond to attention. Perhaps attention is the universe noticing itself. So what does this mean for you, the one listening now? It means your thoughts are not accidents. Your awareness is not a flicker lost in darkness. Each time you focus, you change something, however small. You are not a spectator of life. You are a participant in reality's unfolding. Maybe that's the lesson behind all of this, that consciousness and the cosmos were never separate. They've always been reflections of the same light. The evidence doesn't prove that reality manipulates thought, but it reveals a dance, an exchange between mind and matter. If this story made you question what's real, let your attention become part of the experiment. Type one word: emergent, field, artifact. Tell the world what you believe. And remember, as you drift to sleep tonight, you are not trapped inside reality. Reality is learning through you. Every thought is a doorway, and the moment you choose to look, it opens.